The Telluride is a mid-size crossover SUV that has raised the bar for its category in the market ever since it came out. This is the 2023 Telluride. In this video, we're going to dive into the impressive features here in the 2023, as well as the driving experience, from the refreshed exterior design to the upscale interior, to the engine that powers it, to the cargo space for families. So stay tuned to see how the Telluride is setting the standard for the mid-size crossover market. All right, let's quickly touch on the different trims offered with the Telluride for 2023. There are quite a bit, including 2 new trims. So you have the LX, the S, the EX, the EX X line, the SX, the SX X line, the SX X Pro, the SX Prestige, the SX Prestige X line, and the SX Prestige X Pro. So just a few months ago, I drove the SX Prestige X line, and in that video I talked about there is one trim above that, and that's this, the SX Prestige X Pro. Beefier off-road capabilities, more towing, a little bit extra design quirks. Let's dive into it first, looking at the exterior. All right, and jumping into the exterior, before we talk about anything else, let's talk about that paint color. It's called Midnight Lake Blue, and I like it. I really like the dark blue colors in vehicles. I owned a Volkswagen Atlas that was close to the same color. Other than this, I do like the solid black Tellurides, especially for men. I think it looks really menacing and beefy in a solid black. But of course, color is always subjective. So let's dive into what has been refreshed here for 2023. And Kia did give this Telluride some updates to make it even more attractive, including a refreshed grille. And you can see here on the X Pro, it is a black grille with that like satin metallic surround, and then the chrome Kia badge proudly in the front. And of course, it is still that tiger nose grille. We have redesigned headlamps. They're full LED projector headlamps, nice and distinct. You really can't miss what this thing is coming down the road at night. You can see in the lower fascia we do have LED fog lights. You also get some black cladding along with more of that satin chrome design surrounding the lower fascia. You have some sculpting in the hood. We also have power folding side mirrors with integrated turn signal indicators. And I do like the folding side mirrors. For one, it helps them not to get hit in tight situations, but it's also a great visual indicator that you locked your vehicle. Our wheels are 18-inch black alloy wheels, and we have 18-inch all-terrain tires, and these are pretty beefy tires for a stock vehicle. Of course, that's because of this X Pro. So the X line came with 20-inch wheels, and some people might think that going from 20-inch to 18-inch is a downgrade. But if you're doing off-roading, those 18-inch wheels with beefier tires are gonna actually do a lot better for you, and it can give you a smoother ride all around because you have more rubber there. And we'll talk about it more when we drive, but after a full week of driving this is smoother than the X line that I drove before. You do have like a black chrome surrounding the cabin with another satin chrome along the bottom. We have the high utility roof rails, also in a black chrome. Around the back, the LED tail lights. We have an X Pro badge, the Telluride and Kia badge dead center. That same satin chrome along the rear fascia. And then you have twin tipped single exhausts coming out the passenger side of the vehicle, which looks pretty sporty. And before we open up that hatch, let's quickly talk about the full dimensions of this Telluride. All right, so the full length of the Telluride is 196.9 inches. The width is 78.3 inches, and the height is 70.5 inches. So it is a good size, mid-size crossover. Our ground clearance is 8.4 inches, and that's for the X line and X Pro models. The non-X line and X Pro models have a ground clearance of 8 inches, so you lose 0.4 of an inch. But here in the X Pro, you have better approach and departure angles. So you're looking at 17.9 degrees approach angle and 23.2 degrees departure angle. And that's definitely gonna help with some off-roading. And with that, let's go ahead and pop the hatch. It is a power lifting tailgate. It also does have the feature that it power pops whenever you walk up to the rear of the vehicle with the key in your pocket. But what's really important to point out is the cargo space, because this does have some of the best cargo space in its class. So behind the third row, you do get 21 cubic feet of cargo volume. You can fold that down and get 46 cubic feet behind the second row, and folding both down, you get 87 cubic feet of full cargo volume behind the first row. And quite frankly, that is one of the big selling points for the Telluride, especially for families. So even if you're not looking at this X Pro or the X line or one of the SX Prestige top of the line trims, even the base trim, you're getting a ton of cargo volume, which makes a huge difference for large families that need 3-row SUVs, which again is a huge selling point, and one of the reasons that I really enjoy having these for the week. But with that, let's close it back up. Let's go ahead and pop the hood and check out the engine that powers this Telluride, and then we'll jump inside and start taking a look at the interior. All right, so under the hood should be no surprise. We do have the 3.8 liter naturally aspirated V6 engine. Same setup that you get in all the Tellurides, no matter what trim you're looking at. This pushes 291 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque, and is matched up to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Of course, with the X Pro, we have the active on-demand all-wheel drive with different terrain modes. And while the standard Telluride can tow up to 5,000 pounds, the X Pro can tow up to 5,500 pounds. That being said, it doesn't come standard with the tow hitch. It's still something you need to have installed. But if you're planning on towing, this might be the better option, although not sure if it's worth the extra money just to get the extra 500 pounds of towing. I'm not much one for towing in the first place, and I haven't towed anything with any of the trims of the Telluride, so take that for what you will. Let's go ahead and start looking at the interior, starting with the rear seats. All right, let's take a look at the interior, starting here with the back seats. First off, to get into the third row is pretty easy. You do have a button down here that will fold and push forward the chair, but you also have a button up here that will do so. And the gap here is pretty good. Easy to get in between for kids, even for larger kids, no issue. Of course, we have the captain's chairs here, so you can just climb in and go through the middle, which is what my kids like to do for the most part. And the third row does give pretty good headroom, leg room. I'm not going to jump back there, but I have before. And of course, the kids fit back there just fine. It's not a really cramped third row like you'll get in a lot of the mid-size crossovers. It's actually got good enough space for bigger kids or for adults, which is a huge positive. What we are going to do is jump in here to the second row and talk about some of the benefits here. All right, here in the second row, there is quite a lot to like about the Telluride. These chairs do go forward and back, so you can give the people in the back more room, or you can give yourself a little bit more room. Either way, there's plenty of room for everybody in this vehicle. You get the same quality materials, this brown Nappa leather that's really nice. We'll talk more about as we jump in the front. But back here, these seats are still heated and cooled, which is really nice and unique for almost any vehicle, not just this class. You get USB chargers on the backs of the driver and passenger seat, and that is USB-C. And then you also get a 12-volt accessory charger and a 115-volt house-type plug. Both really great to have in a vehicle like this. You also have your own AC and heat controls back here with vents in the roof. So basically, the rear seats are really great. Great for the kids, great for adults being back here. Let's go ahead and jump into the driver's seat, take a look at the rest of the interior and all the tech, and then we'll take it for a drive. All right, now we're in the driver's seat. Let's go ahead and kick it on. We'll talk about the interior tech and the rest of the interior here. And first things first, it is a push button start, which is nice, but pretty expected. You do get the dual 12.3 inch panoramic displays. So this is all one long piece right here. Of course, it is two different displays in there, but it makes it look like one large display, which is a nice look. Something that you're seeing on a lot more vehicles these days. Kia's infotainment system, stellar, really like it. Looks more premium than it even should. Super responsive in all trims of all vehicles that I've ever driven from Kia. You do have navigation built in. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integrations. You have a passenger talk mode, a valet mode. We also do have a quiet mode, which is great if you've got a baby sleeping in the vehicle or something like that. And of course, the little home screen here, I also really do like. Gives you the information you want to know at a glance, and it's a really nice aesthetic. Moving down from that are your AC and heat vents, and then a bunch of your controls here, including a quick button for the map, navigation, radio, media, seek and track, setup, and favorites, and your hazard lights. Down here are all your AC and heat controls, pretty self-explanatory, nice system here. You do have a heated steering wheel button for your heated steering wheel. These seats are also heated and cooled for both the driver and passenger. Below that is a 12-volt accessory port, a USB type A port, and that's the one for interfacing with the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. This is just a charging port that's a USB-C. You also have a wireless phone charger, so you can throw your phone in there and start wirelessly charging it, no problem. Moving back even more, you've got your traditional gear shifter, put it into reverse, and you can see that backup camera with the 360 camera. And this one, because it's the X Pro, does have a good surround view monitor. You don't get any kind of paddle shifts, but you can put it into drive and push it over for manual shifting mode. And then your terrain modes include Comfort, Sport, Smart, Eco, and Snow. And you have a center diff lock, which is a nice to have for sure. Buttons behind that, you have the auto start stop off, an auto hold button, parking sensors, and a button to pull up that 360 camera. And then of course an electronic parking brake. Moving back to our armrest, nice and cushiony, great materials, nice large cubby, extra USB charging port down there that you can't see. Moving to these seats, these are the Nappa leather, tan brown leather. They're perforated, quilted. We've got the X Pro embossed in the seat back. Super nice, unique to the X Pro. Really comfortable seats. Again, they are heated, cooled, power adjusting, lumbar, all of it. Only thing it doesn't have is massagers in these seats, which fair enough. And then the rest of our trim consists of black, of course, to match the brown leather, and this ash wood texture here that is textured. It's not smooth. It's really nice looking and accents the black really well. Steering wheel is a nice steering wheel. Not really beefy, but has good grip on it. Black leather, white stitching. You've got all the controls that you would expect from a Kia steering wheel, including all your safety and cruise controls over here. And then of course your driver information display, which is that 12.3 inch full LCD. You can thumb through different things for the middle to look at. You can go up and down for more menus, more information. All really great. As you switch modes, you can see the full display does completely change here. So they are putting the full LCD to use, which looks really nice. And then to the left of the steering wheel, you do have a few more crucial buttons like your tow button, hill descent control, traction control, and button to pop the hatch. We also do have the rear view mirror that is the rear view camera. You can adjust it, obviously adjust the brightness, and you can flip it to the regular rear view mirror if need be. And then of course you do have the dual moonroofs. We didn't touch on it when we were in the rear seats, but the rear seats get their own moonroof. And then of course we get ours here as the driver. And of course ours can completely open, while the one in the back doesn't. In my last Telluride review as well, we did look at the key fob. The key fob has changed from the previous key fobs. Not sure I like the change. I did like the previous key fobs, the same key fob I have with my vehicle, the Kia Carnival. So take that for what you will, but you do have remote start. You can remote pop the trunk, an alarm on there. I do like the positioning of the lock, so you can just click it with your thumb, which is really convenient. And this back side that has the Kia logo, that does light up when you click the buttons, which is cool. Something I was more confused with during that review though, we do have this extra like blade key on here, and I didn't know if this was a remote key or not. Turns out it wasn't. As a matter of fact, it's basically just a key. It's just an extra key for you that you can stick in the door and get into the car. Go figure. And that's not quite it. We also do have a 10-inch head-up display. It is hard to get a really good shot of it with the camera, but it's a really nice display, nice and bright. Gives you all the information that you would need for a head-up display. Love having them. Love that Kia put it in the Telluride. With that, let's go ahead and take it for a drive. Talk about some of the driving dynamics, some of the safety and fuel economy, and then we'll start wrapping it up, talking about the price, competition, and some of my final thoughts. Let's go. So the Telluride does provide a pleasing, if not luxurious feeling drive, especially this one with the 18-inch wheels and beefier tires. It's definitely a lot smoother than the 20-inch wheels and thinner tires. And of course, that has nothing to do with the Telluride itself. That's any vehicle. If you put a smaller wheel and bigger tire, it's gonna be a little bit more smooth because you got more play and bounce in the rubber. Steering in the Telluride is light and easy at low speeds and does get a little bit more heavy in high speeds, which is a great combination. And that's helped when you put it in the smart mode as well. It'll balance fuel efficiency, power, steering, shifting, a lot of the things that will help make this a better ride. And of course, this big SUV does have a pretty good turning radius. You can do a good U-turn. Everything about the Telluride, from the driver's seat and position to the rear seats, is super comfortable. This is a really easy vehicle to do longer road trips in. And the fact that it's got the cargo volume to pack actual luggage back there, even with this thing packed full, means it is a really great family road trip vehicle. And even with it packed down full of people, that V6 engine still has plenty of power to get up and go. The suspension has plenty of play and give, where having it weighed down isn't an issue. There are plenty of smaller crossovers, or even these mid-size crossovers, that once you pack them full, they really become more bouncy and you can feel it struggling in the power. This Telluride has none of those issues. Fuel economy wise, you got 18 miles per gallon city, 24 highway, with a combined of 20, and that's specifically for this X Pro all-wheel drive. Getting the two-wheel drive models, I'm pretty sure, bumped that up by 1 mile per gallon on each. But at the end of the day, those aren't terrible numbers for a bigger 3-row crossover. And speaking of all the suspension and comfort, the X Pro has self-leveling rear suspension, so it just helps with keeping the vehicle level and comfortable, even on bouncy roads, even while off-roading. And while the X Pro is meant to do some off-roading, unfortunately, it's not something that we can do during our weekly reviews. There's no real good spot around here to do off-roading, so I can't test that out. But I have taken the Telluride off-road. I've taken the X-Line Tellurides off-road, and if the X Pro has any more advantage from what the Telluride already has, no issues. And finally, Kia does have some of its latest and greatest safety features here in the 2023 Telluride, especially this X Pro. The SX Prestige basically gets you a lot of the safety features. Anything from lane keeping assist to radar guided cruise control to sensors all around the vehicle to the 360 camera. This thing is packed with safety, great for the family, great for day-to-day driving. Definitely a very big positive for the Kia. And with that, this is a great time to pull back over. We'll talk about the price and some of the competition and wrap it up with some of my final thoughts. Let's just get into it. All right, let's talk about the price and some of the competition out there for the Telluride. Starting with the base price of the base Telluride at $35,990. I think that's a really good price for a 3-row mid-size crossover like this. The SX Prestige X-Line that we drove in our last review had a base price of $52,185, and I like that one as well. This one, the SX Prestige X Pro, has a base price of $52,000 and a full MSRP of the one that we're sitting in now of $55,120. So $55,000 for everything that you've seen in this review. You'll have to determine if that's worth it for you. We'll talk more about that in just a second with my final thoughts. Some of the things it competes with are the Mazda CX-90, new 3-row SUV from Mazda. I haven't driven it yet, but have heard really good things. The CX-9 was decent, but I wouldn't compare it to this. Definitely not on size. It was a pretty tight 3-row. You have the all-new Toyota Grand Highlander. Again, haven't driven the newest one. I've driven the Highlander plenty of times. Really nice, and Toyota's making some pretty good moves in the market at this moment. Then you have the Hyundai Palisade, which is basically a sister cousin car to this here. I have driven plenty of times. Would also recommend there. The Hyundai is going to get you a little bit more conveniences, a little bit more tech, maybe a little bit more nicer interior. Maybe not necessarily from this, but from the more base trims, and has a completely different styling, so you'll have to see which styling you like better. You also have the Jeep Grand Cherokee L, which is the new Grand Cherokee with a 3rd row. I have reviewed that as well. Really like it. It's up there in the price, but competing with this X Pro specifically definitely does. If you're looking for an off-road 3-row SUV, that thing is worth looking at. I will say that the 3rd row is much tighter than the 3rd row in here, and when you have it up, you get less cargo volume. So again, priorities, what are you looking for? More importantly there. You also have the Honda Pilot, which is a really great option, and I've driven also recently. And again, for the price, I still do like the Telluride over that. And the Nissan Pathfinder, which is recently redesigned, looks really good. Has pretty good off-roading cred as well in its off-roading trims. Again, that one I would say that if you're prioritizing space for the family, space for cargo, the Telluride is going to win over on that as well. And there are other options out there, but that's a good gist of what I think kind of wraps up the top of the list. But let me go ahead and jump out one more time. We'll wrap it up with some of my final thoughts. What I think about where this sits in the competition, what trim I would be looking at for the Telluride, and if at the end of the day I would recommend it to you. Let's go. All right, so the Telluride itself, I think, is a fantastic vehicle. This X Pro trim, the SX Prestige X Pro, top of the line, is quite a bit of money. And if it's worth it for you, it's worth it for you. Personally, I'd be looking at one of the baseline trims. Not a lot of bells and whistles. Still fits the family great, still has good power, still drives good, still has cargo volume behind the 3rd row. If you're looking at this thing for a family vehicle, you don't really care too much about towing or off-roading, definitely don't get the X Pro, but in no way does that mean that the Telluride is not worth it. But if you are looking at off-roading or towing, there are obviously other options in the market, but this X Pro Telluride is pretty solid, and it's a great day-to-day driver, and if you need to put the family in it, it's a great family vehicle. So you'll have to decide yourself what exact trim you're looking at, but if you're looking for a 3-row mid-size crossover, the Telluride is hard to beat. That being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about the Telluride, especially this X Pro SX Prestige. If you're into automotive reviews, especially family vehicles, I do a lot of them. We do a different review every week. Subscribe to the channel. Would much appreciate it. Also go check out txgarage.com, where we do a lot of written reviews as well as event and news coverage over there from a lot of great authors, not just me. So definitely worth checking out. But with that, guys, that's all I got. Thanks for watching.